Always, always, always balance speed, operability, and security. Another way I like to think about this one is that in every case and in every circumstance, complexity is the enemy. And in the beginning, for example, we had a lot of really good ideas on how to secure our accounts and secure our systems. But it was coming at the expense of speed and operability. So we could have hundreds and thousands of accounts and VPCs and security groups and NACLs and ACLs and all kinds of ways to wrap individual components. And the way I remember explaining this to my wife is, imagine if it was my job, understandably, to build you the most secure house I could. I could get pretty creative too. I could have moats, drawbridge, dragons, a white wall. Suddenly sounds like Game of Thrones, but... And then she goes, well, yeah, I'd have to run errands, and I got to take the kids to school. And then suddenly that story begins to break down, right? Now, security is still mission number one. Arguably, Intuit has some of the most sensitive, if not certainly some of the most unique data on the planet. So we still have to go to great lengths to protect it, but not at the expense of speed and operations. Inversely, if you over-index the other way and the pendulum swings too much towards speed and operability, well, then now you have Swiss cheese in your firewalls, lack of visibility where your data is, and that's no good either. So this is just something to always really be mindful of. You're having conversations or you're having debates that really helped us. You heard it all the time in meetings. Are we balancing speed, operability, and security? So no, you do not need to refactor your entire application before you boot it. We spent a lot of time in the beginning going through this huge effort of service decomposition, trying to build everything into microservices, moving individual pieces at a time inside of the cloud, and that just wasn't working. And I can't tell you how many times we'd be in a meeting with the migrating team. I see our chief architect, Rick Maharaj, here. And listening to see the teams, their strategies on how they wanted their architectures to look. And it was always textbook, right? This is how I'm going to use Dynamo and Lambda and SNS and SQS, and I'm going to move this to ECS, right? The road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? But you also have a certain timetable to get these things done. And so what was otherwise maybe a 6 to 8 month migration, all of your good intentions has now blown this thing out to 2 years or even longer. And as we all know, the rate of innovation coming from Amazon is so significant, 1,400, 1,500 features a year, that in 2 years' time, the landscape looks entirely different. And all of your good ideas, in some cases, are invalidated, or there's a better way. Okay? And so what we found is the right approach for us was lift and shift. Take it as it exists, get it into the cloud. Now there's a footnote to that, which is don't replicate stupid. And so if you find yourself running software that's end of life, unsupported, there's no viable pattern for it to run in the cloud, I advise you to spend some time to figure out how you can refactor those kinds of things. Furthermore, once you're in the cloud, the time it takes and the energy it takes to refactor and evolve your application in AWS is significantly easier than trying to do it in flight and moving it from a data center. Establish your landing zone. Don't be that guy. So, what do I mean by this? Inevitably, there's going to be things that every single team is going to need, regardless of what their technology looks like. They're going to need a VPC, they're going to need CIDR allocation, they're going to need user management, logging, monitoring. And what we found in the beginning was that we were spending cycles building the same foundational things that teams needed and kind of intuitizing the experience where necessary and integrating it into our tools over and over and over again. And so for this to finally scale, we took the time to actually build and automate as much of this as possible. We did this in a couple ways. One was during the account vending process itself. So by the time the developer even got his or her account, a lot of the stuff was baked in. We also spent a lot of time using event-driven automation so that as changes were happening into the account or new resources were getting spun up, a lot of this was taken care of automatically as well. So these kinds of things are just not context to developers, and it's going to slow them down and get in their way. And I highly recommend that you take the time to automate those things. All right. So me personally, I did not appreciate this one in the beginning. It sounds simple, it sounds obvious, but you've got to figure out what the hell you're working with. You've got to go through the pain of going through your inventory, going through your CMDB, and most importantly, driving accountability. Owners, dates, dependencies, sequencing, and then ultimately what the end state or target state is for those applications. Is this thing going to be retired, sunset, cannibalized, migrated? You have to go through this process. And not only do you have to go through this process once, this has to become a mechanism where you and your executive leaders are constantly looking at this to make sure that the wheels are turning on all the tracks. You'll be surprised what we found out, I'm sure it wouldn't be too dissimilar from you, is that there are actually a lot of applications that we could just retire or sunset. And so the problem that we saw once we started this effort, over time became significantly a little more manageable. So get help from AWS and from partners. This was absolutely vital to our success. And not just the success of getting in the cloud, but more importantly, I would say it came into scaling. Our own resources are precious. We all have a business to run already. So trying to actually swallow the effort and the energy to go through a migration while you're still trying to build features and functionality and delight customers is extremely hard. And so this isn't just about solutions architects. Between Amazon and certainly their partner network, there are hands-on keyboard resources waiting that have scar tissue on their back, who've done this with multiple clients already. And certainly as we begin to scale, we're going to DevOps teams and mission teams and pizza teams, many of whom had no experience at all. This was a huge enabler. It was like a shot in the arm of instant offense to start injecting people and injecting talent into the right teams. And then even in that same idea, beginning to cross-pollinate people as time went on. So we're building depth in our ranks and the team's ability to actually migrate. So there's a huge partner network out there today with multiple tiers, many of whom are held in high regard, and I highly recommend that you leverage it. So use a migration factory approach. My team is small. By comparison of the rest of the engineering organization, it's infinitesimal. And there was no way, even with all the right talent injected from other teams, that we were going to be able to scale a consistent method to get into the cloud. And so for us, what the Migration Factory was and is a collection of documents and resources and patterns that literally guide teams from the very beginning to the very end of their migration. And teams inevitably are going to have the same questions over and over and over again if you've ever sat in these meetings. How many accounts? How many VPCs? Which HADR pattern should I be using? What services can I use or not use or should use? And so we took this Migration Factory process, and then by giving this to the partners that we worked with, was really a critical ingredient to allow us to drive continuity, to build confidence in the teams, and to accelerate. At the end of our Migration Factory, we actually invoked a validation phase that we called the MVC, or the Minimum Viable Cloud. This in the beginning was a pretty crude checklist, and we would guide teams through this process. It was the last step, final validation, before teams took traffic from customers, that they had done everything that was required of them for that to happen. Again, it was really about building confidence and driving continuity and consistency in how we're deploying across all of our accounts. And over time, this got better. We automated a lot of this. And not just only our ability to report on the team's position of adherence, but also automating the enforcement of these things. So over time, we're asking dev teams less and less. All right. So we heard a little bit about this in the last presentation, but I couldn't agree more. Use the cloud to secure the cloud. If you're doing high levels of ephemerality, immutability, inevitably the rate of change in your accounts are so significant that what it looked like an hour ago, certainly to yesterday to now, is guaranteed to be different. And so if you think that you can run periodic scans and issue defects into the backlogs of dev teams, you're just going to inundate the living shit out of them. And you're going to slow down their progress. I highly discourage you from doing this. And we would hear these things in the beginning. Well, why did you even let me do something that, am I compliant? These are now things you can actually begin to answer. So not only is this about using automation in the cloud to secure itself, but also to even report out on itself in real time, whether it's for a compliance requirement or for governance or your own internal policy or CIS benchmarks. There's vendors out there in the hall that can help you as well with doing this. There's great open source projects out there today as well. Capital One's Cloud Custodian is a great way to get going if you want to check them out. All right. For maximum ludicrous speed, grant your developers full unfettered access to the Amazon console. If you want to accelerate, and you want innovation, and you want ideation, this is a great way to do it. Don't limit the full experience. This was a philosophical choice that we made a long time ago. It's one of the best decisions that we ever made. Now, to be fair, there are some additional controls here. I think it represents about 3 to 4% of our total cloud spend, so it's not like it's a bunch of runaway projects. We have much tighter controls in those accounts, right? We don't allow ingress access from the internet. There are certain scaling policies. We recycle the accounts every so many days and purge them, and so we're not worried about stuff being left around for too long that shouldn't be, that could eventually become a security issue. All right. So finally, for all you laggards in the adoption curve within your own companies, assuming you've done all the hard stuff, you've figured out all the problems that you need to solve to eliminate the excuses and build the roads that teams need, and you're working with partners, you've got foundational patterns and standards, and you're still not getting quite the progress you need, well, we found that diverting dollars that would otherwise go to technology and hardware refresh away from the data center and moving it to the cloud drove action. And so in teams then, this obviously requires gutsy leadership and boldness as well to go make a declaration like this, but this is something that we did from the very top, and it had the ultimate impact to get us moving. And so when teams are faced with a decision between aging and decaying hardware in their data center, or copious amounts of elasticity and scale in the cloud, well, we found that they tended to make the right choice. So, I hope that these have been of some value to you, as whether you start, or you're continuing, or you're wrapping up your migration. I'm happy to connect with each of you individually directly after this. If it's around lunchtime, I'll probably be at the nacho bar. But while I'm here, I do want to send a call out to all my colleagues here from Intuit, from those watching and streaming. Thank you so much. Without your amazing contributions, we wouldn't be here today telling our story. I'm very proud to be a part of it. So thank you very much.